Well, good morning. It is a nice, cool, but potentially warm day out here by Barron's, Alberta, and I'm currently checking out a canola field that's given us a bit of trouble. So, as you can see here, we got green patches, we got ripe patches, we got a bit of everything else, and this field actually has some problems going back to seeding. So there was, not only was there a few seeding issues with moisture depth, but this field is highly variable with patches of sand going through it. So we had sandstorms, we had flea beetles, we had several other issues in here, as well as extremely high level of wild oats, and that has given us a very variable field for harvest. And this was desiccated with heat and glyphosate, but some of those low areas that were sandblasted early in the season were just not quite far enough along, so we're still kind of fighting with those. So today I'm just taking a look, and we might be desiccating this again yet. So here's one of these bad areas in the field, and you can see we still have some green material in here. And when you look at these, this thistle here, you can see the top has been burned pretty good by the heat and the glyphosate, but the bottom is still all nice and green. So it looks like we just didn't get adequate canopy penetration. This was sprayed by the air rather than a ground rig. So I think we're gonna have to come in here again and hit this again, just to try to get some of this green material dried up. Oh, corn by Nobleford is coming along pretty well. We got some beautiful ears in here, and they are starting to firm up. They're not all in milk stage now. We do have a milk line that is becoming visible and starting to move, but we're not quite high enough yet. You can still squeeze some liquid out of these, so we need a little bit more starch buildup yet, but she's coming along nice. Here we got some winter wheat going into the potato stubble. Excellent conditions for seeding right now with that little bit of moisture we've had. Seedbed conditions should be very good, should be out of the ground right away. Well, here's where the winter wheat was just getting seeded, and our seeding depth looked pretty good. We're at about 1 inch, and there's decent moisture here, so I think we won't have any problems with the seed getting up and getting going, so we should be able to see this out of the ground as early as next week. Potato harvest is continuing on. It looks like there's a new grime machine out there. Not sure how to pronounce that one. Never seen one of these in action before, so I'll have to fly the drone, get some video of that. It looks like it's a demo model for now. Well, here's a good example of how corn varieties can look so different at the end of stage. So on the left side, you can see this is Pride 1027. So this is the ears. On the right is the 1017. So a little bit of a difference in maturity. Overall, very little, but you can tell from the shape of the cobs which one is which. The 1027 on the left tends to be a little bit flattened on the end of the ear, whereas the 1017 is round. You can see by the crop, the 1017 is starting to dry down a little earlier. The 1027 is still quite green, so there's probably going to be about a week difference in silage timing between these two varieties. Well, we're back in that alfalfa field that had problems with last week, and the decision has been made to spray this out and crop it into wheat. And so we have come in here with the high rate of Corex, the 56-acre fall rate, and we have sprayed this out along with a heavy shot of glyphosate, of course. So you can start to see a bit of an effect on some of these grasses. Are starting to turn color a little bit. The alfalfa is starting to show a little bit of bleaching and is definitely curling up. Dandelions are being a little bit slower to show the symptomology, but I think they are going to start to turn on us here right away. Just needs a few more days of sun. Well, here's more potato trucks waiting to unload, and they're getting processed through all the conveyors and coming into a different bay now this time. Somebody wanted more conveyors. Here's a whole lot more conveyors. Somebody on YouTube said they wanted to see more conveyors. Potato master up there directing the flow. And here's the girls taking out mud and rocks and keeping everything nice and clean. Well, it's another cool, damp, dewy morning out here, and I'm in some barley stubble. And we do have a fair amount of barley is emerging in here. It's not too big of a concern, and as long as you're not worried about, you know, moisture and nutrients for next year. Some guys prefer to spray it out, some will just let it freeze during the winter. There is the odd dandelion and such in this field as well, but overall it's fairly clean. Well, here's a spot that got flooded out in the canola field this year, and as you can see, we got a high amount of weeds in here now. So we've got all sorts of different amaranth in here. There's some smartweed, there's plantain, we got kochia, there's buckwheat in here, lots of poverty weed and knotweed, lots of stuff in here. And this just actually got sprayed yesterday. This got hit with Corex and a high rate of glyphosate. There's also some big foxtail and quackgrass patches in this field, so I'm going to come back here in the next week or so and assess, see how good weed control is. But you can see here where the canola got drowned out, these weeds really took over, and you can just see the volume of seeds on the ground here. So this will be a trouble spot. Well, I'm out here in the barley stubble that got seeded into fall rye, and it's doing pretty well. You can see nice clear seed rows. Establishment looks good, emergence looks good, but there is a pile of volunteer barley. So in the seed row you can see it's mostly rye here, kind of distinctive purple down at the bottom, but there is a whole pile of barley elsewhere in the field here. Barley is pretty easy to determine the difference because it's got these big fat leaves with rounded tips, but as much of it as there is, it won't survive the winter. So for right now, it's more like a nurse crop almost than anything else. Well, here's my first silage corn coming off by Lethbridge. This was a really early hybrid, but better early than too late. Lots of guys got caught last year with it being too late, but this year definitely no problem for this variety to finish, and it looks like it's coming off pretty well. Down by McGrath today, and as you can see, it is a very windy day, and there's still a fair bit of durum standing in this field, even though it is ready to go, and that's because the farmer has run out of bin space. So until he can arrange for delivery to an elevator, there's not much we can do with this other than harvest it and pour it on the ground somewhere. And here's the last of the canola coming out of the field out here. Looks like it was a successful harvest. Just in time too with this wind. Could have caused some shelling. Alright, attempt number 2 at harvesting my biological trials down here at McGrath. And better be successful this time because the combines are about 10 minutes behind me, so I got to get this cleaned up before they come through. So wish me luck. Well, this windy day is turning out to be a bit dangerous. There's hard to see, I know here, but there's dust and smoke coming straight from the west over there, probably on the reserve somewhere. And up north towards Lethbridge, it looks like there is potentially maybe a fire somewhere out there as well, because there's a lot of smoke out there, but it's blowing real close to the ground. Well, that's it. I got them all harvested, so this time I was able to take one seed row out of the front of the plots and one seed row out of the back of the plots, make things a little bit more even. Now I just got to collect my flags because I got some hungry combines over there waiting. Well, it's a beautiful Friday morning with just a slight breeze compared to yesterday's hurricane, and I'm back at that same canola field that I was earlier in the week that we were going to hit with glyphosate and heat, and instead it ended up getting swathed, and you can see now these swaths have blown really bad. And not only that, but the canola was too mature to swath really. And what we ended up with is underneath these windrows, you can see there is just tens of thousands of pods all shelled out on the ground. So I never ever recommend swathing canola this mature. A harvest loss like this is going to be quite substantial as a proportion of the yield. And then the stuff that blew, of course, it shelled out worse than if it had been standing. So you can see in here the volume of white. There's a pile of pods are shelled out in here where this blew. Between that and the swather, it's hard to calculate, but I would suggest somewhere, 10, 20, potentially 30%. It's tough to say exactly what the loss is until it's combined. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.